Maya Rodriguez stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive docking bay of Kepler 7 station. The place was huge, bigger than any building she had ever seen on Earth. Metal walls stretched up so high they disappeared into shadows. Above, the air smelled like oil and something sharp that made her nose wrinkle. Around her, other new cadets were getting off their ships too. Maya had to look up to see most of them. Way up, the Zenthari warriors stood nearly 8 feet tall, their blue skin covered in natural armor plates that looked harder than steel. When they walked, the metal floor shook under their heavy feet. Their voices rumbled like thunder when they talked to each other in their own language. Near the far wall, a group of Vextai floated a few inches off the ground. Their bodies looked like they were made of colored glass that shifted and changed as they moved. Maya had read about them during the long trip here. They could control energy with their minds and lived for over 300 years. Right now, they were glowing soft purple, which meant they were curious about something. There were dozens of other species too. Tall ones, short ones, ones with too many arms, ones with scales, ones with fur. All of them looked strong and dangerous. In their own ways, all of them looked like they belonged at a military academy. Then there was Maya. She was 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed about 130 pounds. Her black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She wore the same gray jumpsuit as everyone else, but on her, it looked too big. Her brown skin was smooth, no armor plates or scales or anything that looked tough. She carried one small bag with everything she owned. A Zenthari cadet walked past her and didn't even look down. To him, she probably looked like a child who got lost and wandered into the wrong place. Maya didn't mind. She kept her face blank and her eyes moving. She watched everything and everyone. She counted exits, noted where the security cameras were pointing, and memorized the faces around her. Her brain was always working, always recording details that might be useful later. Attention all new cadets, a voice boomed through speakers, built into the walls. Report to Assembly Hall 7 for orientation. Follow the blue lights on the floor. Maya looked down and saw glowing blue strips that formed a path through the docking bay. She followed them along with everyone else, staying. Near the back of the group, a few other humans walked near her, but even they were bigger and looked more confident than she did. The assembly hall was another huge room, with seats arranged in rows facing a raised platform. Maya found a seat in the middle section where she could see everything, but wouldn't stand out. She pulled out a small data pad and got ready to take notes. More cadets kept coming in until the hall was full. Maya counted roughly 400 beings from at least 30 different species. Humans made up maybe 20 of that number. They all looked nervous and out of place compared to the others. Heavy footsteps on the platform made everyone look up. The being that walked out was massive, even by the standards in this room. Commander Thrakvon stood over 9 feet tall and was built like a living tank. His skin was dark green and covered in thick scales that overlapped like armor. His arms were as thick as tree trunks and ended in hands with claws that could probably cut through metal. When he opened his mouth to speak, Maya could see rows of sharp teeth. "Welcome to the Galactic Military Academy," Thrakvon said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "You are here because your species thinks you have what it takes to become warriors. Most of you are wrong." He started walking back and forth across the platform, his yellow eyes scanning the crowd. "Look around you. See the beings sitting next. To you, half of them will quit before the first month is over. Half of the rest will be sent home in shame before graduation. Only the strongest, the smartest, and the most dedicated will earn the right to call themselves graduates of this academy." Maya wrote down everything he said, but she was also studying how he moved. Thrakvon was big and strong, but he favored his right side slightly. An old injury, maybe? His eyes moved in predictable patterns when he scanned the crowd. He spent more time looking at the bigger, more impressive species, and barely glanced at the humans. "Let's talk about what each species brings to this academy," Thrakvon continued. He pointed to a group of Zenthari. The Zenthari are natural warriors. Strong, tough, fearless in battle. The blue-skinned cadets sat up straighter, proud of the recognition. He pointed to the Vextai. The Vextai have mental powers that make them excellent strategists and support fighters. The crystalline beings glowed brighter with pleasure. Thrakfon went through several more species, listing their strengths and what roles they usually filled in galactic military forces. Finally, his eyes found the small group of humans. "And then we have humans," he said. Maya could hear the amusement in his voice. Class 7 peaceful traders. Useful for maintenance work, supply management, and other support roles. They fix things and carry supplies so the real warriors can focus on fighting. Some of the alien cadets chuckled. Maya saw a few humans in her section look down at their hands, embarrassed. But Maya just kept taking notes. She wrote down exactly what Thrakfon said and how he said it. She also noted which species laughed the loudest and which ones seemed to agree with him the most.
Ow.
At the human section now, every military needs support staff. You'll find plenty of ways to help from behind the lines, while the real soldiers do the dangerous work. More laughter from the crowd. Maya looked around and saw that most of the other species weren't even paying attention to the humans anymore. They had already decided what humans were worth. It wasn't much. That was exactly what Maya had hoped for. She spent the rest of orientation listening and watching. She learned about the Academy's history, its training programs, and its rules. She memorized the daily schedule and the layout of the station. Most importantly, she studied the other cadets and instructors. When orientation ended, everyone was assigned to barracks based on their species compatibility. Maya found herself in a section with the other humans and a few smaller alien species that were considered non-threatening. Her bunk was next to a human male named Jake Morrison, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the galaxy. "This is going to be along for years," Jake said as he unpacked his things. "Did you hear how they talked about us? Like we're not even real soldiers?" Maya nodded and made a sympathetic noise, but inside she was satisfied. Let them think humans were weak and harmless. Let them ignore the small, quiet woman who was just here to fix their equipment and carry their supplies. They would learn the truth soon. Enough, she finished unpacking her few belongings and lay down on her narrow bunk, round her other cadets. Talked nervously about what tomorrow would bring. Maya closed her eyes and went through everything she had learned today. Every face, every name, every weakness she had spotted. The hunt was about to begin. The alarm screamed through the barracks at 5 in the morning. Maya's eyes opened instantly, but she didn't move. She had been awake for the past hour, listening to the sounds of the station around her. The ventilation system hummed in a pattern that told her which sections were active. Footsteps in the corridors gave away the positions of the night shift guards around her. Other cadets groaned and stumbled out of their bunks. Jake Morrison sat up and rubbed his eyes, looking confused about where he was for a moment. The Zenthari? Cadets in the next section were already up and moving, their heavy footsteps shaking the floor. "First day of real training," Jake said as he pulled on his uniform. "I wonder what they'll make us do." Maya said nothing. She had already read the training manual 3 times and memorized the Academy's daily schedule. She knew exactly what they would be doing today. The mess hall was chaos. It's hundreds of cadets from dozens of species all trying to eat breakfast at the same time. Maya took her tray of food and found a quiet corner where she could watch everyone else. The food was designed to work for most species, but it tasted like cardboard mixed with metal shavings. She ate slowly and studied the room. The Zenthari sat together and talked loudly about their combat training back home. The Vexti floated near the ceiling, not needing to eat solid food like the others. Smaller species clustered together for safety, while the bigger predator races spread out. In claimed territory, the humans sat at 2 tables near the back. They looked small and out of place, picking at their food without much appetite. Maya counted them again. 19 total, including herself. Not many compared to the other species. "Rodriguez," a voice called out. Maya looked up to see Instructor Vex High approaching her table. A spider-like being had 8 legs and moved with quick, jerky motions. "Report to Training Bay 5 after breakfast." "Combat simulations." Maya nodded and went back to her food. Combat simulations meant holographic training rooms where cadets could practice fighting without getting killed. She had read about the technology but never seen it work. Training Bay 5 was enormous. The walls, floor, and ceiling were covered. in millions of tiny projectors that could create any environment imaginable. Right now it looked like a rocky desert with two suns beating down from a purple sky. Today we learn about combat awareness. Commander Thrakvon announced to the group of 30 cadets who had been assigned to this session. You will work in teams of 3. Your job is to survive for 10 minutes while the simulation throws challenges at you. Maya looked around at the other cadets. Most of them were from the bigger, stronger species. A few humans were scattered through the group, but they all looked nervous. Rodriguez Thrakvon pointed at Maya. You're with Cadet Zektar and Cadet Valenix. Maya walked over to where her teammates were waiting. Zektar was a Zenthari warrior who stood almost 8 feet tall. His blue skin was covered in scars from training back on his homeworld. Valenix was from a species Maya hadn't seen before. He had gray skin, 4 arms, and eyes that could move independently of each other. Try to stay out of our way, human Zektar said without looking at her. We'll handle the real fighting. Maya nodded and stepped back. That was fine with her. She would watch and learn. The simulation began. Suddenly they were standing on a battlefield with explosions going off around them. Enemy soldiers made of light and energy came running toward them from all directions. The air filled with the sound of weapons, fire, and screaming. Zektar roared and charged forward, his massive fists swinging at anything that moved. Valenix used all 4 arms to grab weapons from fallen enemies and started shooting in multiple directions at once. Both of them were strong and fast and clearly knew how to fight. Maya stayed behind them and watched. She didn't try to fight the enemies. Instead, she studied how they moved. The holographic soldiers had patterns to their attacks, so they always came from the same directions. They always used the same weapons. They always made the same mistakes. She also watched her teammates. Zektar was incredibly strong, but he got angry easily and made bad decisions when he was mad. Valenix was smart and could multitask, but he focused too much on individual targets and missed the bigger picture. The 10 minutes passed quickly. When the simulation ended, their team had survived, but just barely. Zektar was breathing hard and covered in sweat. Valenix was checking his equipment to make sure nothing was damaged. Not bad, Thrakvon said as he looked at their scores. Zekta, good aggression. Valenix, excellent multitasking. Rodriguez. He paused and looked at Maya with something like confusion. You didn't engage any enemies? Your combat score is 0. She was useless, Zektar added. Just stood there and watched while we did all the work. Maya kept her face blank. I was observing, sir. Learning the enemy patterns. Thrakvon laughed. Learning patterns, of course. It's what humans do instead of fighting. He moved on to the next team, but Maya had learned something important. The simulation had flaws. The enemies were predictable. More importantly, she now knew exactly how Zektar and Valenix fought. Their strengths, their weaknesses, their habits. Information was a weapon, and she was collecting it. The next few hours were more training. Hand-to-hand combat, weapons practice, tactical planning. Maya performed just well enough to avoid attention. She won some exercises and lost others, always staying in the middle of the pack. It's never the best, never the worst. But she was always watching. During weapons training, she memorized how each species held their guns, how they aimed, how they reloaded. During hand-to-hand combat, she studied fighting styles and noted which moves worked best against which opponents. Jake Morrison was in several of her training sessions. He was trying hard but clearly struggling to keep up with the bigger, stronger cadets. During a break between exercises, he sat down next to Maya. This is impossible, he said, wiping sweat from his face. How are we supposed to compete with these aliens? They're all bigger and stronger and faster than us. Maya handed him a water bottle. You're thinking about it wrong, she said quietly. What do you mean? We're trying to be stronger than them? That's not how humans win fights. Looked at her with interest. Then how do humans win fights? What? Maya was quiet for a long moment. We don't fight fair, she said finally. We study our enemies until we know them better than they know themselves. Then we use that knowledge to win. Set. What you're doing, studying everyone? Maya nodded. Every species has weaknesses. Every individual has habits. Every fighting style has flaws. I'm learning all of them. Jake looked around the training bay at all the powerful alien cadets. And then what? Then I wait for the right moment to use what I've learned. That night, Maya lay in her bunk and went through everything she had observed during the day. She had detailed mental files on 37 different cadets now. She knew their fighting styles, their personalities, their fears. She knew which ones were leaders and which ones were followers. She knew who was smart and who was just strong. Most importantly, she was building a complete picture of Commander Thrakvon, how he moved, how he thought, what made him angry, what made him proud. Every detail was important. Jake was right about one thing. Humans couldn't win by being stronger or faster or tougher than the aliens. But they could win by being smarter, more patient, and more ruthless. Maya had been hunting since she was old enough to walk. She had just never hunted anything this big before. The next few weeks would be interesting. 3 weeks into training, Commander Thrakvon announced the elimination protocols. Maya sat in the back of the briefing room and watched the other cadets react to the news. Some looked excited. Others looked scared. A few of the humans turned pale and started whispering to each other. The elimination protocols are simple, Thrakvon explained, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Each week, cadets will face combat trials. Win your fights, and you advance. Lose too many, and you're sent home in disgrace. Only the worthy will remain. Maya made notes in her datapad while studying Thrakvon's expression. He enjoyed this. Part of his job. Fear, the pressure, the chance to break cadets who thought they were tough. She filed that information away with everything else she had learned about him. The first round begins tomorrow, Thrakvon continued. Matches will be assigned randomly. No weapons, no armor, just your natural abilities against your opponent. Fight until one of you can't continue. After the briefing, Jake Morrison found Maya in the corridor outside. He looked nervous and kept glancing around like he expected someone to attack him. "This is it," he said in a low voice. "They're going to use these fights to get rid of all the humans. We don't stand a chance against these aliens in hand-to-hand combat." Maya stopped walking and looked at him. "What makes you think that?" "Come on, Maya. Look at us compared to them. The Zenthari have natural armor and can punch through steel. The Vextai can use mental powers. Even the smaller species have claws or poison or something. What do humans have?" Maya was quiet for a moment. "Patience," she said finally. Jake stared at her. "Patience? That's your answer? We're going to get beaten to death, and you're talking about patience? Patience and observation? I've been watching everyone train for 3 weeks. I know. How they fight, how they think, what they expect from their opponents. That's worth more than claws or armor, if you say so." Jake didn't sound convinced. "I just hope I don't get matched up against one of the big ones." Maya didn't tell him that she had already figured out the matching system. It wasn't random, like Thrakvon claimed. The instructors were deliberately pairing weaker cadets against stronger ones to create dramatic fights that would eliminate the ones they didn't want. The next morning, the first round of fights began in the main combat arena. Maya's match was scheduled for the afternoon, so she spent the morning watching other cadets fight. She sat in the stands with a few other humans and took careful notes on everything she saw. The arena floor was a circle of hard metal surrounded by energy barriers to protect the spectators. 2 cadets would enter from opposite sides and fight until one of them couldn't get up anymore. Medical teams waited nearby to treat the injured. Most of the fights were brutal and short. The bigger, stronger species usually won by overwhelming their smaller opponents with raw power. But Maya saw several cases where speed and intelligence beat strength. A quick Velkari scout defeated a massive Thorgan warrior by staying out of reach and landing precise strikes until the bigger alien collapsed from exhaustion. She paid special attention to the fighting styles she hadn't seen before. Each species had preferred methods of attack and defense. The Zenthari liked to charge straight forward and use their armored fists. The Vextai tried to stay back and use their mental powers to confuse opponents. The insect-like Krikti were fast but fragile, relying on hit-and-run tactics. All useful information. When her name was called, Maya walked down to the arena floor. Opponent was waiting for her on the other side of the circle. Cadet Gorthok was a Colonian like Commander Thrakvon, but smaller. He was still nearly 7 feet tall with green scales and claws that could cut through metal. He grinned when he saw Maya, showing rows of sharp teeth. The spectators in the stands were already laughing. A small human against a scaled predator. They expected this to be over quickly. Maya studied Gorthok as they approached the center of the arena. He moved like most Colonians she had observed, confident and aggressive, but predictable. His scales were thickest on his arms and chest, but thinner on his sides and back. His claws were dangerous but made him overconfident in close combat. "Try to make this last more than 10 seconds, human," Gorthok said as they faced each other. "I want the crowd to get their money's worth." Maya said nothing. She settled into a loose stance and waited for the fight to begin. The buzzer sounded. Gorthok immediately charged forward, his claws extended and aimed at Maya's chest. It was exactly what she had expected him to do, instead of backing away or trying to block. Maya stepped to the side at the last possible moment. Gorthok's momentum carried him past her. As he stumbled, trying to turn around, Maya struck him in the side, where his scales were thinnest. It wasn't a powerful blow. It was precisely placed to hit a nerve cluster she had memorized from anatomy texts. Gorthok roared in pain and swung his arm back at her. Maya ducked under the swing and struck him again, this time behind his knee. The Colonian's leg buckled, and he dropped to one knee. The crowd had gone quiet. This wasn't going the way they expected. Gorthok tried to grab Maya with both hands, but she was already moving again. She stayed just out of his reach, circling him and landing quick strikes whenever he overextended. Each hit was calculated to cause maximum damage while using minimal energy. The Colonian was getting frustrated and tired. His attacks became wilder and less coordinated. Maya waited patiently for the right moment, then stepped inside his guard and struck him in the throat with the edge of her hand. Gorthok made a choking sound and collapsed. He tried to get up but couldn't coordinate his movements. After 10 seconds on the ground, the fight was declared over. Maya had won. The arena was completely silent as Maya walked toward the exit. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching her, but she kept her expression neutral. Just a lucky human who got fortunate against a careless opponent. But as she reached the exit, she heard Commander Thrakvan's voice over the speakers. "Interesting technique, Cadet Rodriguez. It's very interesting indeed." Maya looked up at the instructor's booth and saw Thrakvan staring down at her with those yellow eyes. For the first time since arriving at the academy, he was really looking at her, really seeing her. She had made a mistake. She had revealed too much skill, shown too much knowledge of alien anatomy and fighting techniques. A maintenance worker shouldn't know how to disable a Colonian warrior with precise nerve strikes. Maya nodded respectfully to the instructor's booth and left the arena. She had won her fight, but she had also attracted the attention of the most dangerous predator in the academy. The hunt had just become more complicated that night. Maya lay in her bunk and thought about her options. She could continue to hide her abilities and hope Thrakvan forgot about her performance. Or she could accept that her cover was blown and start planning for what came next. Jake Morrison was snoring softly in the next bunk, exhausted from his own fight earlier that day. He had lost to his Anthari warrior, but had lasted long enough to avoid elimination. Most of the other humans weren't so lucky. Maya made her decision. She would continue the charade for now. But she would also start preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Thrakvan. He was smart enough to know that something was wrong with her story, and he wouldn't let it go. The next phase of her mission was about to begin. 2 months passed after Maya's fight with Gorthok. She had been more careful since then, winning some matches and losing others in ways that looked natural. But she could feel Commander Thrakvan watching her during every training session. Yellow eyes followed her movements, studying her just as she had been studying everyone else. The academy was down to half its original cadets now. The elimination protocols had sent home the weak, the unlucky, and the unprepared. Only 12 humans remained out of the original 19. Jake Morrison was still there, barely hanging on by winning just enough fights to avoid elimination. Maya had learned something important during these weeks. Thrakvan wasn't just a brutal instructor who enjoyed hurting cadets. He was smart, maybe smarter than she had first thought. He had started changing the fighting matches, putting certain cadets against opponents that would test specific skills. He was experimenting, trying to learn something. The morning of the final trial arrived with an announcement that surprised everyone. Instead of fighting other cadets, each remaining student would face Commander Threkvon himself in single combat. It was supposed to be a learning experience, a chance to test their skills against a master warrior. No one was expected to win. Maya knew better. This was Threkvon's way of getting answers to the questions that had been bothering him for months. The fights were scheduled throughout the day in order of species rank. Humans, being considered the weakest, would go last. Maya watched from the stands as cadet after cadet faced the massive Kalonian instructor. Threkvon was incredible to watch in action. He moved like liquid death despite his size flowing around, attacks and striking with perfect precision. He defeated each opponent quickly, but not brutally. He seemed to be testing them, learning what they could do before ending the fight. A Zenthari warrior lasted 30 seconds. Avexta managed 45 seconds using mental powers to confuse Threkvon before being gently knocked unconscious. Even the toughest predator species couldn't handle the instructor's combination of size, strength, speed, and experience. Late in the afternoon, Jake Morrison's turn came. Maya watched her bunkmate walk down to the arena floor, his face pale but determined. He had improved a lot over the past months, but he was still just a human trying to survive in a galaxy full of apex predators. The fight lasted 20 seconds. Threkvon moved with casual efficiency, avoiding Jake's desperate attacks and then putting him down with a single precise strike to a nerve cluster. Jake hit the ground and didn't get up. Medical teams carried Jake away on a stretcher. He was alive but unconscious, and Maya could see that his left arm hung at a wrong angle. Another human eliminated from the program. Final match of the day, the announcer called out. Cadet Maya Rodriguez versus Commander Threkvon. Maya stood up and walked down to the arena floor. The remaining spectators had gone quiet. After watching Threkvon destroy dozens of cadets, they expected this to be the shortest fight of all. A small human woman against the most dangerous warrior in the academy. Maya stepped through the energy barrier and looked across the arena at Threkvon. He was standing perfectly still, his arms crossed over his massive chest. Those yellow eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made several spectators shift uncomfortably in their seats. Cadet Rodriguez Threkvon said, his voice carrying clearly across the arena. I've been looking forward to this match for quite some time. Maya said nothing. She walked to the center of the circle and waited. Tell me, Threkvon continued, where did a maintenance worker learn to strike Kalonian nerve clusters with such precision? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maya knew that everyone was listening, waiting for her answer. She could feel the weight of their attention, the expectation that she would make some excuse or confession. Instead, she settled into a fighting stance that no one in the academy had seen before. It wasn't based on any known martial art or species-specific combat style. It was something older, something that came from a world where everything was dangerous, and only the most ruthless survived. I learned by watching you, Maya said quietly. Threkvon's eyes widened slightly. Watching me? For 2 months I've studied how you move, how you think, how you fight. I know that you favor your right side because of an old injury to your left shoulder. I know that you rely on intimidation as much as strength. I know that you've never faced an opponent who was patient enough to learn all your weaknesses before engaging. The arena had gone completely silent. Even Threkvon seemed taken aback by her calm analysis. And I know, Maya continued, that you brought me down here because you figured out that I'm not what I appear to be. You want answers? You want to know what humans really are? Threkvon's expression shifted from surprise to something like hunger. Then show me. The fight began. Without a signal, Threkvon moved faster than Maya had ever seen him move in training, his massive form blurring across the arena floor. But Maya was already gone from where she had been standing. She didn't fight like any of the other cadets. She didn't try to match Threkvon's strength or stand toe-to-toe with him. Instead, she moved like water, flowing around his attacks and staying just out of reach. Every movement was calculated, every step part of a larger pattern. Threkvon quickly realized that this wasn't going to be like his other fights. Maya wasn't trying to land lucky hits or survive as long as possible. She was hunting him, using his own aggression and momentum against him. The Colonian adjusted his tactics, becoming more cautious and defensive, but Maya had been expecting that too. She had watched him fight for months and knew all his patterns, all his preferences, all his instincts. She began to dismantle him systematically. A strike to his injured shoulder that made him stumble. A sweep that took out his legs when he overcommitted to an attack. A pressure point hit that numbed his right arm for crucial seconds. Each technique was precise, efficient, and devastating. The crowd was on its feet now, staring in disbelief. As the small human woman took apart the Academy's most feared instructor, this wasn't luck or desperation, this was mastery. Threkvon tried everything in his arsenal. Brute force, speed, cunning, experience. Nothing worked. Maya had an answer for every attack, a counter for every strategy. She had turned the fight into a chess match, and she was already 10 moves ahead. The end came suddenly. Threkvon lunged forward in a last desperate attack, putting all his strength behind a strike that could have shattered stone. Maya stepped aside at the last possible moment and struck him in the base of the skull with surgical precision. The massive Colonian dropped like a fallen tree and didn't move. Maya stood over Threkvon's unconscious form and looked up at the stunned spectators. For the first time since arriving at the Academy, she let her true nature show in her eyes. The patient, calculating predator that had been hiding behind a human face. "Any questions?" she asked quietly. No one answered. The medical team rushed onto the arena floor to check on Commander Threkvon. Maya stepped back and watched as they scanned his vital signs and checked for serious injuries. The massive Colonian was breathing steadily, but showed no signs of waking up anytime soon. The spectators in the stands were still silent, staring at Maya like they had never seen a human before. She realized they hadn't. They had been looking at humans for months, but seeing only what they expected to see. Weak maintenance workers. Harmless support staff. Creatures too soft and small to be dangerous. Academy director? Veltar descended from the command booth to the arena floor. The ancient Vextai's crystalline body was glowing deep red, which Maya knew meant extreme agitation or fear. His mental voice reached every being in the arena when he spoke. "Cadet Rodriguez," Director Veltar said, his mental words carrying undertones of confusion and concern. "Please explain what we have just witnessed." Maya looked around the arena at all the alien faces staring down at her. Students, instructors, academy staff, representatives of dozens of species from across the galaxy. All of them waiting for an explanation that would make sense of what they had seen. "You want to know what humans really are?" Maya said, her voice carrying clearly in the silent arena. "The truth is simple. We're not maintenance workers or peaceful traders. We're apex predators from a death world, and we've been lying to you since the day we entered galactic society." A Zentheri cadet stood up in the stands. "That's impossible. Humans are weak. Your species profile lists you as Class 7 peaceful traders with minimal combat capability." Maya smiled, and for the first time since arriving at the Academy, it wasn't a harmless human smile. It was the expression of a predator that had finally stopped pretending to be prey. "We wrote that species profile ourselves," she said. "We wanted you to think we were harmless while we learned everything about you. Your weaknesses, your technologies, your military capabilities. We've been gathering intelligence on every species in the galaxy for decades." Director Veltar Zaglo shifted to purple, indicating deep thought. "You're claiming that humanity deliberately misrepresented itself to galactic civilization." "Not misrepresented. We told you exactly what you wanted, to hear that we were peaceful and useful and not a threat to anyone. You were so busy looking for obvious dangers that you never noticed the predator already inside your walls." Maya began walking slowly around the arena as she spoke, and every eye followed her movement. Earth didn't produce gentle maintenance workers. It forged hunters. For millions of years, my species survived by tracking and killing anything that moved. We drove dozens of other species to extinction on our homeworld just because we could. A HFY instructor clicked its mandibles nervously. But humans show no aggressive tendencies. Your colonies are peaceful. Your traders are helpful and honest. Because that's what we want you to see, Maya explained. Do you know what the most dangerous predator on Earth was? Not the big cats with their claws and teeth. Not the massive bears with their strength. It was humans, because we learned to hunt in packs and use tools and think several steps ahead of our prey. She stopped walking and looked directly up at Director Veltar. Every human colony in the galaxy is positioned at a strategic choke point for trade or military movement. Every human trader has been mapping your supply lines and defensive positions. Every human maintenance worker has been learning how to disable your most important systems. The silence in the arena was so complete that Maya could hear the ventilation systems humming in the walls. Finally, a Velkari security chief found his voice. What you're describing sounds like preparation for war. Maya nodded. Earth has been at war with the galaxy since the day we made first contact. You just didn't know it yet. We're persistence hunters. Don't attack until we're absolutely certain we can win. And now? Director Veltar asked. Now we're ready. Maya pulled out her small data pad and pressed a few buttons. I've just transmitted a detailed analysis of this academy's defenses, training methods, and personnel to Earth, along with complete psychological profiles of every species I've encountered here. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red. Lights flashed in the corridors as security teams rushed to their positions. But Maya made no move to escape or fight. She simply stood in the center of the arena and waited. They're outnumbered, the Velkari security chief said as armed guards surrounded the arena. Surrender now, and you'll be treated according to galactic law. Maya laughed, and the sound sent chills through every being who heard it. Outnumbered? Do you know how many humans are currently working on military bases, trade stations, and government facilities throughout the galaxy? We've been placing our people in key positions for 40 years. She looked around at the shocked faces surrounding her. Right now, human maintenance workers are standing next to every critical system in galactic civilization. Human traders are docked at every major spaceport. Human colonists are positioned near every strategic resource. Director Veltar's glow had turned black, the Vextai equivalent of terror. You're saying that humanity has been infiltrating galactic society for decades. Infiltrating, studying, learning, positioning. We know your languages, your technologies, your military tactics. We know which species are strong and which are weak. We know who your leaders are and how they think. Most importantly, we know exactly how to bring down your entire civilization without firing a single shot. Maya gestured to the unconscious form of Commander Thrakvan. I didn't beat him through superior strength or speed. I beat him because I understood him better than he understood himself. That's what makes humans dangerous. We don't just fight our enemies. We learn them, predict them, and then dismantle them with surgical precision. The arena was filled with the sound of weapons being charged and communication devices activating as word of Maya's revelation spread throughout the station. But she remained calm and still, like a predator that had already won the hunt. What? Galaxy made one critical mistake, Maya said, as security forces moved into position around her. You assumed that the most dangerous species would announce itself with roars and displays of power? You never considered that true apex predators prefer to hunt silently. She smiled again, that cold predator's expression that would haunt the nightmares of everyone who saw it. Humanity didn't come to the galaxy asking for help or looking for a place to belong. We came hunting. And now that we know everything we need to know about you, the real hunt can finally begin. The last thing the assembled beings heard before the security teams moved in was Maya's quiet voice carrying across the silent arena. Welcome to Earth's galaxy. We hope you enjoy your stay.